All right. Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing today? I'm really happy to meet, have a wonderful woman today who I've heard so many amazing things about her and her amazing school and World School Hub in the Dominican Republic. So I'm glad to finally have her here so she can share her story and inspire us on all that she's doing. I have Kate Mcallister here. Hi, Kate. How are you?
I'm really good. Thanks, Liz. Thank you for inviting me on.
Super glad to have you. Let me give everyone a little bit background. So Kate Mcallister is a founder, director, and principal at the Hive in the Dominican Republic, a school and a World School hub for families raising wholehearted, purposeful, self-directed learners. It has students of all ages, nationalities, and backgrounds. Kate also has 20 years of experience teaching and training other teachers, other educators, and has spent much of the time training and developing teachers in, I think, the UK and other countries and all over the world. So Kate, thank you so much for joining us. So glad to have you. And I love your beautiful tropical background.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sitting in front of a plant in my house.
Yeah, well, my background is fake. It's Bali, but I'm in the Seattle area right now, but yours is real. So that's great. So please tell us a little bit about yourself and your family.
So I'm a mother to two children, one fully grown son. He's grown and done university and he's off, and one daughter who's 10 and she's with me now in Dominican Republic. So they've both been here and he's gone off to get on with his life, and she's still with me.
Wonderful, wonderful. So you're from the UK originally, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and tell us a little bit about your teaching background, because have you been a teacher for a long time, or how did you get involved in education?
So I've been teaching for more than 20 years now, which is quite a long time. And I started teaching very traditionally French grammar in a secondary school in the UK, and very quickly became very interested in learning and what's happening for children, much more from the learner's perspective than from the teacher's perspective. And I'll try not to wax on for too long about that, but I started going from teacher-centered to child-centered to human-centered to out the end of traditional education to kind of off the map and into the alternative world. And I designed a program for self-directed learning inside mainstream education. And it was very successful and I really enjoyed it. And that's when I kind of knew that I wanted to go even further with that kind of education model.
That is amazing, because I hear from so many teachers, they learn about education theory and how kids learn, the science behind learning when they're getting their degrees, and then they work in the traditional school system, whether it's a public or private, background. And unfortunately, those big organizations don't really allow you to teach in this much more holistic and effective way, and they're frustrated. But some of them stay in the that system because it's their job, it's their livelihood. So it's really brave of you, I think, to kind of break out of that and become, I guess, kind of entrepreneurial and, figure things out and create new programs. Can you briefly mention how you were helping educate or train people to educate refugees for a while in Europe?
Okay, so I left mainstream education, and because I'd done this program and it was hugely successful, and I go like, I've solved the education issue, like we can make it work. And nobody was really very interested back then. And so they are now, funnily enough, 15 years later, it's becoming more popular. But in that space, it was around 2015. And it's when there was a huge number of people migrating towards Europe from Syria, Afghanistan, Iran, all kinds of countries that were having a terrible time of it. And they were arriving in France. And so I was effectively an out-of-work French teacher who knew a lot about self-directed learning and wanted to do something to help. Also a mother. And I felt very strongly that if I ever had to send my son to the other side of the world, I would really hope that somebody else would be there to receive him with love and some practical support. So that's what I did. And I ended up buying a bus on eBay and converting it into a school, a solar powered school. And so the bus went round and round the refugee camp, which kept people warm and dry. and we taught French and just behaved like humans together. And that was very much fed into what has now become the human hive approach to learning.
And did
sort
your
of
kids
self-regulated learning, yeah.
and did your kids join you on these adventures?
Yes, both my kids were with me. Matilda was 3, I think, or 4.
Wow, wow, wow. So how did you end up in the Dominican Republic? Were you traveling? Were you world schooling for a while yourself? I mean, other than doing the project with the refugees around Europe?
So all my traveling up until this point had been job focused.
Mm.
So I was either teaching in China, or I was teaching in Italy, or I was, some kind of consultancy work. But when I came to the Dominican Republic, that was me. That was my personal choice to learn from other people who were living this lifestyle. So I came to meet somebody called Candice, and I think lots of people know Candice. She started something called the Worldschool that was going to be traveling, and it started here in Dominican Republic. And so I came here to meet her with my daughter, to enroll Matilda and to volunteer, and to learn from her. I said to her, I've got this education background and I really want to learn about world schooling, and I want to meet people who do this. And I arrived 2 weeks before COVID. So I arrived and everybody else left.
Wow. Okay. And so you decided to stay in the Dominican Republic. And then how did the idea of the Hive come about? Because did Candice leave as well? And her project fell apart?
Well, she went in. So she went in with COVID. So I didn't see her.
Okay.
And I moved into a little community, and there were a handful of other families there. And so I had always had this idea that I was going to do some kind of educational project that was really different, that was really aligned with my personal values and everything that I understood about child development and learning. And I wanted to do this, but I didn't know where in the world or exactly how it would be. So my idea was to travel around the world, visiting lots of different places. I'd got on my list Anahata, I'd got on my list a couple of other places from a few years back. And I didn't get to visit any of them.
Right.
So I started in a little yogashala with a handful of local families. We made a bubble. Remember when COVID bubbles were the thing?
Yeah.
And so we made a bubble of 11 children. And we started there, and then more joined, and then more joined, and it became the Hive.
And these were local Dominican families or expats or a mixture?
A mixture.
Okay, great. Okay, so then you started this experiment, and then, how did it keep growing? How did you figure out what to set up?
Well, I think I was kind of building the rocket ship while we were flying.
Okay.
With hindsight.
Hey, a lot of successful companies start that way. or
it was COVID, right?
Yeah.
Like, what else could I do? I was stuck in one place.
Right.
And I had all of this knowledge and experience to bring together. And what I didn't have, I learned along the way. So the Hive now is very different from how it started.
Okay.
And it's still evolving, as I evolve as a parent, as I evolve as an educator, as I evolve as a traveler. So what I'm offering to families is evolving too.
Right, right. Okay, well, so let's talk about the education philosophy, the model that evolved. What is it now? And the education model philosophy, you said self-directed learning, I think maybe some project-based learning. How did you figure all that out, and what do you offer now?
Okay, so that's the bit that hasn't really changed that much. It's just been fine-tuned over the last 15, 20 years. So it's what we call self-regulated learning. So self-regulation is from the human nervous system outwards. So it goes beyond just saying that there is a mind-body connection. It's about understanding how that mind-body connection works and developing a language to describe that mind-body connection that children can use, and then techniques for fine-tuning. And in that space, when we are relaxed and open and we feel safe and ready to learn, we are much more receptive to learning new things. It makes us much more effective and connected learners.
True.
And learning's a really emotional thing, right? If people don't believe they're any good at learning, or if they believe it's going to be too hard, then they quit before they get going. And so what I wanted to do is kind of put in a whole like support system that makes learning feel successful and enjoyable, and something that children, once they've learned this about themselves, they can go off and learn wherever they go for the rest of their lives, rather than having to wait for somebody to provide them with information that may or may not stick.
Right. Yeah, this is great because I mean, for my work day or work week, I really try to do my work when I'm feeling the best, most alert and most engaged. And, you know, it's more in the morning to early afternoons. In the evening, I'm just tired. And other people are opposite. They do lots of work or learning in the evening. So it depends on their body rhythm and their mood and mindset and all that. Okay, so how does learning at the Hive happen? Like, explain that, like a day in the life or a week in the life, if that makes more sense.
Yeah, sure. So everything we do kind of follows the self-regulation cycle. So there's a lead in, and then there's the action part, action interaction part, and then there's integration and moving out. And over time, that makes like a sine wave. So, and it tessellates out, if you like. So on a daily basis, we come in, we check in, right? So we ask ourselves how we're feeling in our bodies, how we're feeling in our minds, how we're feeling energetically. And then we decide whether that's a feeling that is helpful to us for what we need to do today, or whether we want to change that feeling up.
Yeah.
And we do that with us.
Can I interrupt? What happens if a student or a learner is there and not feeling great? Do you do anything to help them get to feeling more centered and ready to learn?
Yeah, absolutely. So we start by checking in, and then the next thing we do is a self-regulating activity. So sometimes we need to up-regulate, sometimes we need to down-regulate, sometimes we just need to expand where we are. And so we learn lots of different techniques for doing that. Some super short and fast, like yogic breathing exercises, some much longer. So we do, you know, mindful things, we do yoga, but we do high intensity interval training. We do all kinds of things that shift our nervous system and that get our heartbeats regular and get us into the space where we no longer feel stuck. And we use language like stuck in the basement. So that feeling of being just slumped and not ready for learning, unmotivated, or that feeling of being too fizzy, like I can't concentrate, I've got too much going on. So we're looking to get children to find that middle space. What we would, if you stay in that state for a long time, that's where you'll find flow state. You can't find a flow state if you're down in the basement or if you're up in the attic. That's the languaging that we use.
I love that.
But you can find it if you're in the living room. So that's where we aim to get. And so children will go off in different directions and do different things for about 20 minutes.
Okay, as a group or individually?
It depends. So it really depends where they are and how they're feeling and how far along we are in the course. So in the beginning, we learn how to do these things together. And by the end, they should be able to self-regulate. So in the beginning, we co-regulate, we do it with them. And we talk about how we're feeling, what we're doing. And then by the end, they should be able to say, I think I need to go for a walk, or I'm going to do some mindful coloring, or I'm going to go for a run, or I'm going to take the goat out for a walk. Something that's going to make them feel ready to get on with the day.
Okay. And then once they do that, what kind of learning activities do they do throughout the day?
So we do project-based learning, and we build our projects around a real global challenge. So a real world challenge. And these are based around something that's called the global goals, United Nations global goals. There are 17 of them, and they're problems that affect the whole planet in different ways, in different countries, but they affect the whole planet. And so we look at one of these as a topic theme, if you like, and we get local people to come in and talk about the impact right here in the context where they are. And then we think about how it impacts in the countries that we're from, so we can compare. And then we basically design an impact project. Like what can we do that could make a difference? What can we do as individuals? What can we do as groups? What can we do as a whole society to make a positive impact on this challenge? And that's what becomes the projects that the children lead and we follow and support.
That's amazing, because again, versus the old-fashioned academic model, which has different, subjects, math, reading, whatever, you guys are focused on 21st century skills through doing these projects, critical thinking, communication. I'm guessing they're talking a lot, maybe making presentations, collaboration, obviously, because the world is about collaboration, not about competition. And that's the traditional school system, is getting gold stars and marks and all that. And then creativity. I mean, they're creating really cool projects. So I love that. Okay, so tell us, you're talking about projects and courses. So it's not a full-on school for 9 months of the year or year round. How long do students participate?
So it was originally, when it was COVID, we opened, and we were a bit of a refuge for people who didn't want to put masks on their children, and we created this bubble, and people would come and join for a few months or a whole year. But then when COVID passed, people kind of went back to what they were doing, and most people who come to the Hive don't want to stay all year. Okay. They want to come for this kind of specialist input, if you like, to support their children to become more self-regulating, more self-directing, more able to be independent and teach themselves or learn effectively. So people come for a 6-week program, and everybody comes for the same 6-week program. So where before we used to cycle, and some people had been there a while and some people were new, now everybody comes at the same time and finishes at the
start and finish. Okay, can a family do more than one at a time?
They can, but they're not stuck together anymore. So we have gaps in between.
Oh, okay. All right. So how long are the gaps?
It depends.
Okay. So they can stay. They can stay
all
around.
the time.
Sign up for the next one. Okay. And then, do you provide accommodations?
So we have accommodation partners that we work with. So we have these community housing setups where 5 or 6 families live together in the same residence, and so they have a shared gardens, shared swimming pool, and they eat together, play together, but they have their own space. They have their own private space to live. Okay,
these are like bungalows, or it's an apartment building, or a giant house?
Yeah, bungalows. Okay. Bungalows. Well, we've got a couple of different ones. One is bungalows and one is a giant house.
Okay, interesting. So I love this idea because it's a school plus kind of a Worldschool hub, right? What ages of kids are able to enroll, or who do you typically have?
So the one we've just done a 3-week summer adventure, and so we had 3-year-olds. So we had a group of 3, 4, 5-year-olds, and so we do from 3 to 16. But we also do programs for graduates, so for 18 plus. So we've got one of those about to start in September. So for bigger kids,
okay,
if you like.
18 plus. Yeah, I mean, I have 14-year-old twins, and I would love to have us do something like this, but they're a little allergic to really young, screaming, loud kids because they're introverted. So we're always looking for something that has a teen program. I mean, it could be a big program with all age kids, but something special for teens. So you don't have anything kind of divided by age groups other than your graduates?
Well, so in the building that we have, they're divided into groups, but they have snack and lunch together and playtime where they're allowed to mix if they wish to.
Okay.
But the projects that we work on are divided into ages.
Okay. All right. That makes sense.
There's a spread. So normally 11 to 16.
Okay. So obviously this is a very kind of holistic 6-week project-based thing. So there's no grades, there's no, transcripts, there's no accreditation. I'm guessing if somebody's a homeschooler, they can keep track and put it on their own transcripts that they make. That's wonderful. So do you think the family?
Yeah, we make portfolios that they can take with them.
Good.
So we do, like, if children like writing, drawing, making that stuff, keeping a record of what they do, then they keep all of it in a folder and they can take it with them and put it towards their homeschool accreditation.
Sure. Okay, that makes sense. And so do you think most of the families that are world schoolers, they're kind of into the self-directed learning? Do you think you have also some that are on the academic path to maybe attend university someday? Is it a mixture of different kinds of kids? Because
There's
a lot of us world schoolers, we are entrepreneurs, we're remote workers, we're freelancers, whatever. And who knows what our kids will end up doing, but because obviously I think we're all trying to raise them to be somewhat global citizens. But knowing the families that come, do they talk about the future of their kids?
Yes, all the time. I mean, I think that's a shared human experience, isn't it? That parenting is always a balance between how you wish the world is and how it currently is, and whether or not you're making the right decisions for your children.
Right.
So I get a lot of people looking for reassurance that if they're not doing something more mainstream, or if they're not picking up their accreditations every year as they go, are they going to be missing out? Are doors going to close for them?
Right.
And so I generally point them towards all the research that's out there and the universities and their policies for their admissions policies and how it works if you haven't been traditionally educated, to say that those doors are not necessarily closed. And if anything, children who've been home educated or done an alternative education model are more successful at university because they have those 21st century skills.
Exactly.
And they're choosing to go there when they could choose anything to do anywhere in the world because they've been raised that way. They're choosing to go to university. So they're doing it because they want to.
Yeah, it's one of the first questions people ask, if I pull my kids out of regular school and start world schooling, am I ruining their future? Am I ruining their options for university? And I just try to tell them, no, you're improving it. And, I have a 12-week course on how to world school and how to launch into this lifestyle. The first half's on launching, logistics, lifestyle, and the second half is on education. And, I have a video that I share with people on the top 6 ways to world school. And one of them is attending local schools around the world or world school hubs. That's another one. And I also have, my last week is I interview some grown world schoolers or parents of kids, who have launched and gone to university or started amazing businesses or whatnot. And the future is amazing for kids like this. So thank you for contributing to that conversation.
Well, and we have the internet now, right? So the conversation is getting broader.
Yeah.
I mean, I come from a very traditional family and I began in education in a very traditional way. I didn't know that this was an option. I knew that people homeschooled.
Yeah.
But I kind of had that thing in the back of my head. Well, that's because they can't, they're not, for some reason, it's not quite a good fit in traditional education.
Right.
But actually, there are lots of people who are just choosing to step out of that paradigm and into a completely different one because they want to raise their children in a different way. And the more conversations like this that we're having, saying, well, there's lots of different ways to do it as well. It's like the whole idea of there's a right way and a wrong way disappears when you start world schooling.
Totally.
Because
absolutely. So I'm guessing that you're attracting the families that are pro self-directed learning, yes? Or do you have some people who, we're just doing a gap year, we're very, very much an academic family, we're doing this just for a year, we want to test it out, and then we plan to go back to regular school? And then do you get those families and you have to help them kind of de-school a little?
Fewer now.
Okay.
So in the beginning, I think, like everybody, I don't know, it's a fairly common human mistake, right? You want everybody to be able to join in, right? You want to be able to provide something that everybody can come to. And so I kind of fell into that trap especially when it was COVID. So all sorts of people who had very different ideas on self-directed learning, how much is teacher-led, how much you can really trust children to make decisions by themselves. So I found that I was being challenged an awful lot I felt like I was in conversation with people's mother-in-law a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean when I say that? Like,
Yeah, just people
they
with very old-fashioned mindsets about education.
and they had to justify the choices that they were making to their mother-in-law.
Mm.
And so they wanted me to justify the choices that I had made to
Right.
them so that they could justify them to the person who was saying, well, I can't believe you're taking your children away.
Yeah.
And it's less so now. And
Okay.
also, I think there's more choice out there now.
Yeah.
So people who want a more traditional education, but that's a bit more outdoorsy, can find it.
Yeah. Well, I would say most of the World School hubs, a lot of the World School friendly schools, and I'm compiling a big list. I think I have over 100 schools around the world on my list. This is for the participants in my course, and also the World School hubs, which is a hard list to put together because some of them are pop-ups that then they change all the time. Anyway, they tend to be a little bit more progressive. I mean, obviously you have traditional schools around the world and there's databases on that. But the ones that are World School friendly that allow families to enroll for shorter periods of time, not for the whole school year, they tend to be pretty progressive and innovative. Okay, so how many families or students do you have participating in each session, like 6-week session?
It depends. So I would say on average, about 30 children.
Okay. And I think it's really good that you're finally figuring out your niche and your message and really, you know, whatever, putting it on your website to make sure the people who are very traditional academic minded, when they go to your
Mm-hmm.
website or enroll, they can just opt out and not enroll because it's not a good fit for them.
Yeah.
So let's talk about tuition and pricing with the school, and then what are the accommodation pricings? I'm sure that varies on what you book. Yes.
So yeah, it varies. It varies a lot. So there's kind of there's mid-range housing, which is around $1,500 a month
For a family, how
per
many?
family.
Okay, for like a family of 4 or something?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there are some of them are like 800, some of them are 1,200. It, you know, it depends. So this, like, if it's just like a single parent sharing a bed, there's like one casita that just has one bed.
Okay.
And then there's a casita that has 2 rooms and 2 bathrooms. So they're all slightly different prices, but it's around that mark.
Okay, so from 800 US to 1,500?
Yeah.
Okay. And then what about tuition for the 6-week program cost?
So the 6-week program is $1,900, and that is all of the daily activities, snack, lunch, the bus, and the excursions. It's all included now. So we used to do just the daily activities, and then there were all of these little add-ons.
Okay.
And then it just got to the end of the session, and people said to us, you know, it would be much easier if you just said, there's all these extra things. You're going to end up doing them. So just pay for them now. And then I don't have to keep sending you a Venmo for horse riding and a Venmo for rock climbing and this, hire a surfboard. Just tell me how much it is,
right.
and we'll say yes.
Yeah.
So now we'll do that.
Some people like all of it together, others more a la carte. Okay, we have a couple of comments. Julie says the DR and Hive both look like a fantastic option. Yes. Erica says, what would be some examples of projects you have done, and how do the projects differ for teens versus younger kids? Great question.
Okay, so the projects we have, oh my gosh. So we've done about 10 or 11 different sessions now. So some of my favorites, biodiversity, we built a fruit forest. So in order to improve the biodiversity, we built a fruit forest, composting system, got a goat, got a chicken, built a goat house and a chicken coop. So the children designed them, built them out of scrap material, planted all the trees. We planted 1,000 fruit trees in people's gardens for zero hunger. And recently we've just done life below water, and we've cleaned a river, cleaned the ocean, reforested a mangrove. And the kids have designed this idea that we can recycle the trash from the beaches, and there's a machine where you put it all in and it turns into pellets, and then you can melt it and turn them into drinking cups and plates and things. So the idea is that that will then develop. So projects can sometimes be, we've had a website built. So it really depends on the children and what has grabbed their attention. So they all kind of have the same input, but they all hear very different things. And so they are either focused on the human beings, or they're focused on the animals, or they're focused on making something. And so they go in very different directions. And the really little ones, sort of 3, 4, 5 years old, are focusing much more on relationships. So their relationship to themselves, their relationship to others, and their relationship to the planet. So they might make smaller things that they can have more impact with, but they're all fit together.
Yeah, and so the children help decide once they get there, or you have a theme in advance?
The theme is there in advance, but that's the only thing. The rest of it goes, we go where they go.
Okay. All right. I think I looked at your website. You had something, I forget what it was. It was about the ocean, so marine kind of stuff. And then the kids show up and then they try to figure out this project related to that theme, right? Wonderful. I love that. Okay, so yeah, so what would be the main benefits of participating in the Hive? I mean, they're learning, right? They're learning how to self-regulate. They're socializing with I mean, that's a biggie for us world schoolers. Some people just travel and don't really interact with other families. But for us, we've been doing it for 7 years. We don't always participate in World School hubs or, casual communities, whether it's organized or casual, but we do part of the year. So, and we see some of the same families over and over again. So what other benefits? I mean, you have all of those, but what other benefits can you think of? Or do you want to elaborate what I said?
Well, there's all those things. The families, I think one of the biggest surprises for families is the community living and how much they learn about themselves and each other as adults. That's a real positive. And I think what I think is a really added value that you get if you come to the Hive is that we are really connected to our context and our local community. And so all of the staff are, apart from me, are local, and all of the expertise is local. So we bring people in who know about what we're learning about is concrete, it's real. They can see real people doing the things that they're learning about theoretically.
Right. In book.
Yeah. And so that makes a real difference when they meet actual people who are doing these things and living that way. Yeah,
that was going to be my next question about how involved does your community get involved with the local culture? So yeah, I mean, you have students from the local area, you have, the staff and the experts coming in. Do you guys go on any field trips or excursions?
All the time.
Okay.
Yes.
And so tell us a little bit more just in general about visiting the Dominican Republic as a World School family. What are things to do and see? What do you like? Maybe mention some of the excursions that you do.
So the Dominican Republic is lovely. It's one of the friendliest places I've ever been. And we do all kinds of things. So we'll visit lots of local environmental projects, people who are doing things for the environment here. We'll visit local hotels and employers to see what they are doing, how they are kind of living out these policy ideas. We do a lot of impact projects. So we do a lot of planting or building or making things that you can then, so the things that we started planting 3 years ago, you can now, like the children who come, we go and revisit. So you can see how things are growing. They can see, even though their impact is going to feel this small while they're there, they can see the impact of what happened last year and the impact of what happened the year before.
Great.
So I think that anchors the experience in reality a little bit. Sometimes traveling is surface level, which is lovely and it has lots of positives, but you never really get to go deep into a community. So somewhere like the Hive allows you to be on both of those levels.
This is so important because I feel like a lot of these world school hubs or schools around the world, they're very, I don't know, Western focused, and they're kind of in a bubble, maybe. I mean, maybe they interact a little bit with the outside, but it looks like you do it a lot. So I really like the eco-conscious focus. I mean, I guess you consider yourself a kind of a green school, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely one of my inspirations.
Yeah.
I was going to apply for a job there a long time ago.
I'm not talking about the green school in Bali, but just the general term,
Yeah.
being a green school. Do you do anything that is not focused on kind of outdoors, eco, climate, maybe anything that's more tech focused? You mentioned you guys built a website, right?
Yeah, all kinds of things. So the 17 sustainable development goals they cover architecture, they cover peace, justice, strong institutions. We've done responsible consumption and production. So we've done like product design, all kinds of different things. We've
Neat.
built built buildings, small buildings out of wood, construction staff. And there isn't tech focus is hard in a country like DR because the power goes off sometimes and the internet goes out a lot.
Yeah.
So to do a whole 6 weeks that was tech focused, we would
Right.
struggle.
Yeah.
But we are really receptive to kids who, we've had kids build a whole Minecraft world, right? So their 6 week, the culmination of their 6 week project was a Minecraft world of how they would do something, and other children made models out of sticks and stuff.
Right.
So
Okay.
we
Amazing.
do our best to make the learning meaningful.
It sounds great, but what are some of the challenges that you and your team have had running the Hive, or maybe what challenges families have experienced above and beyond COVID?
So I think one of the biggest challenges for me has been finding staff.
Okay.
Because it's a really small Venn diagram. Someone who really truly understands self-regulation and self-managed learning, self-directed learning. Someone who speaks English and Spanish. Someone who can travel or spend a significant amount of time in Dominican Republic. So that's been challenging, but we're kind of there now. And part of where we're going next, as I'm seeing how things are developing, is I want to train more educators. So I've always done education training as part of my whole thing that I do, my portfolio, if you like.
Yeah.
And I want to do more of that that's really focused on providing educators for world schooling families and world schooling hubs, because I know I'm in a group with some other world school hub leaders, and it's a common problem.
Right.
So it would be lovely if we could, build up a team of people who really are world school educators, who are trained in all of that theory and also practice. Because as you said at the beginning, we get the theory when we go through university to become a teacher, but then we never develop our practice in those.
Okay, so you have a program where people can come, adults can come and be trained to be the type of, facilitator, educator, what have you, the Hive way, and then they can go out in the world and do whatever they're doing. That's amazing. Okay, so other than enrolling in the amazing Hive, it sounds so great. What advice do you have for families looking to enroll their kids in schools short term, while traveling? How can they find appropriate schools, and what steps should they take to make it happen?
I think asking lots of questions, going into the Facebook groups, being in things like this, I have found this community to be really warm and open and non-judgmental and helpful. And so ask all the questions that you think might be silly. Somebody else will have asked them before, or somebody will know the answer.
Okay.
And really spend time as a family figuring out what makes you feel good, right? What kind of traveling do you want to do? Because when you come out of this, when you come out of the paradigm, right, the normal paradigm, it takes a really long time to figure out who you are and what your groove is as a family.
Yeah.
So don't expect to get it right the first time. Try a couple of different ones on for size. You know, go to a really structured one. Go to a completely free one. Try a few different things if you can. And give yourself time. Give yourself time to figure out what your world schooling vibe is as a family and what you need. Because
Exactly.
there's so much out there.
Yeah. And there's no one way to do it. And yeah, the great advice. I do have a free 2-hour masterclass that talks about figuring out what your family's why is. Like, why do you want a world school? What is it? And a lot of basic stuff, getting your mindset there and having your family put together a vision board to really figure out, you know, what you all individually and then as a family, what you envision, what your goals are, what your hopes are for this type of adventure. So it's on in my Facebook group, and it's also on my YouTube channel. So check it out if you haven't already. So what are some great lessons you've learned while, you know, running the Hive or traveling around? What do you know now that you wish you knew when you kind of started on this global adventure?
Well, I think what I've really learned about myself and my daughter is that we want to travel more. So I kind of nailed my foot to the floor with the Hive a little bit. So the first year we were open all year. So we were open year round. I was in the classroom year round, you know, running the school, being like a school principal, if you like.
Yeah.
Even though it was alternative, I was still doing all of those things.
Sure.
And so the second year, or this third year, this year we're in now, it's been much wider, more open, and I'm doing a program for adults as well, so that I get something for me too. And next year we're planning to travel and take the Hive on tour a little bit.
Ooh.
So there'll be hives popping up in other places. So you get the same stuff, but you don't just have to come to Cabrera. So we're going to pop up. We're going to partner with some other organizations doing really cool stuff all over the planet.
What locations? Can you mention any now?
So the first one is just down the road, right? So we're just testing it out not too far away at the Taino farm in Cabarete. So it's a 25-year-old permaculture farm, and they have all kinds of cool stuff going on. So we're going to partner with them and we're going to put it there. And then next year, fingers crossed, Kenya.
Awesome. Amazing. Well, I'm so excited for that. Wonderful. I'm going to check to see if one has questions. Sonia says, I would love to be trained after 20 years in traditional education. I need to be deschooled and retrained. Yeah. Sonia participated in my beta cohort for my How to Worldschool course. And the great thing is she and her husband and 5-year-old are driving up to Seattle soon, and they're going to stay with us for a couple nights.
Oh, nice.
In person.
Nice.
I'm so excited. But yeah,
the next one's in January.
Okay.
Here in DR.
Yeah. So check it out, Sonia. I think this would be a great program because again, they're going to take some time off and travel, but then she and her husband, who's a math teacher, they want to start, you know, being digital nomads or, you know, working along the way. So this will be awesome for them. Great. Okay. So I will list your website down below. Is there anything else you want to share about any other links or social media? Maybe maybe you could send to me the link for how people who want to join your educator program.
Yeah, I'll send you the link to the educator program because that's for January, the next one. Awesome. And it's for anyone in education, right? So traditional teachers and also traveling teachers with Worldschool hubs.
How long is that course?
It's 5 days.
Okay, and it's in person at the Hive. Amazing, amazing. Okay, great. Yeah, so we'll put both the links for the school and your training program for educators there. And yeah, amazing, Kate. I'm so glad that we chatted about this. You have this wonderful program, and I'm really happy that you're going to be helping this idea spread around the world because we need more Worldschool friendly schools and hubs, and some of them come and go. They're not easy to run. I keep telling people, I mean, you're saying really nice things about the participants, but I hear from other Worldschool hubs that some people just have these really high expectations or different expectations. You know, they're very particular and demanding. And, you know, most of these projects are a labor of love, and they're really
Oh yeah.
easy. I don't know if you know, I launched a brick and mortar children's business. It was an indoor children's play cafe, birthday party venue, and I had a preschool, a play-based preschool on property, and it was so much work, you know. And there's most of the families participating were wonderful, but once in a while you get somebody who just doesn't understand that how hard it is. And then I feel sad when I see a project like this or a hub launch and they want to do it forever, but then it's just, you know, it's not even financially super lucrative. It's really, you're putting in your blood, sweat, and tears in. So I would
I've never worked more hard for less profit.
Exactly.
Less money.
Exactly. So everyone, please tread lightly. And these are, you know, these locations, these amazing communities are gold to us, because, you know, everyone wants to find community. They want to find a really good way for their kids to learn about the world or whatever. And they're not easy to find that are short term, like we World Schoolers want, and understand kind of the philosophy that we World Schoolers have. Because there's lots of traditional schools around the world that you may be able to enroll your kids, but it's not really.
Yeah, I mean, that's the mistake I made. I wanted it to be able to meet everybody's needs, and for people to be able to drop in, because the narrative is, if you leave the safety of the traditional way, you're in the wilderness.
Yeah.
And so most people never make the leap because they're too fearful of what happens if it doesn't work out. I won't be allowed back in.
Exactly. They will. They will be allowed back in.
Yeah, of course. But I wanted to make it easier, like just come and take one step. But actually, you know, I understand now why things are set up the way that they are. If people don't stay all year, you have to keep it staffed all year. There's all of these different things that people aren't taking into consideration.
Yeah.
And so now we have a model that works. The education, the learning is, we've had the last 3 sessions have just been gorgeous, and we've had the right people who came for the right reasons, and we've all had a really lovely time.
Yeah.
But it just isn't open all year anymore, so that I get to travel a little bit too.
Yes, totally. Yeah, that totally makes sense. I'm really glad that you figured all of that out to have a nice balance for the families that are coming and also for your family. Wonderful, Kate. Well, I think you might be in my group. I'm not sure, but if people watching the replay have questions later, I hope you will check I know that you've got a windy palm tree there, or bush or something there. It's wonderful. So just check to see if people have questions later on. And thank you so much, Kate. Super glad to have chatted with you. I hope to come to the DR. I have been there before I had kids, just for a vacation for a week. It was really lovely. And but we would like to come check it out, especially the Hive. So thank you so much.
Come and see us one day. That'd be lovely.
Awesome.
Thank you very much for having me on to chat.
Thanks. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for watching. I'm Lizz Quain. My twins and I have been traveling and world schooling for about 7 years, and I'm happy to share our experiences. Make sure to check out all the other videos on my channel. I have a playlist of interviews of fascinating world school families and service providers who share lots of info and wisdom about world schooling, traveling, and the digital nomad family lifestyle. If you're new to world schooling or have recently launched and are struggling because you're kind of winging it, if you need some help, I do have a super comprehensive 12-week program on how to world school and travel extensively as a family. I share lots of info on travel logistics, where to go, how to find community, how to immerse yourself into local cultures, and the variety of ways to educate your kids while traveling above and beyond homeschooling them yourself, and much, much more. Make sure to watch my free 2-hour masterclass on how to become a Worldschooling trailblazing family. That is a great way to learn how to get started. I'll include a link in the description with more info. Thanks and happy trails.